Again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I wanted to review a couple of things with you before we discuss the budget. As we all know, there's a lot of activity and construction going on in Nashville right now, and we are seeing that reflected in our 2015 assessment roll. We just completed that roll, and we've seen assessment increases of over 2% in the total assessed value of the county. For 2015, that's a historic increase. It ranks among the highest I've seen in the last 40 years. So we are seeing some improvement in the increase in assessed value and the growth that we're seeing in the value from new construction. Just to give you some indicators, we've since our 2011, when we hit the worst of the Great Recession, we've seen tremendous increases. The number of building permits, for example, has increased from 2,900 taken out in 2011 to 5,676 in 2014. New buildings completed and put on the assessment roll were at 1,019 in 11 and have jumped to 2,357 in the past year. The number of new parcels created in Davidson County has jumped from 381, only 381 new parcels countywide in 2011, to 2,563 in this past year. New businesses in 2011, we actually lost almost 1,100 businesses. 1,099 businesses in Davidson County closed in 2011. And this year we've had 1,607 new businesses come on the personal property rolls. Big change in the environment, big change in the results, and so I just wanted to report that to you. The other thing that we're seeing, which is of great interest to us, is that property values have gone up quite a bit, and the state requires every county in the state of Tennessee every 2 years to do a sales ratio study, which measures the level of the appraisal done in the last reappraisal to the current sales prices of property. In 2014, for the 2015 sales ratio, when you look at the sales that occurred during that entire calendar year, on average, our appraisal was at 88% of the sales price of those properties. So we're 12% low on our appraisals that were done less than 2 years prior to that. If you look at a month-by-month sales ratio study, you will find that the most recent month that we have was March, and that continued to decline at about 2% a month after the first of the year, and we're down to nearly 81% of value. So we've seen as much as on average a 20% increase in the value of properties. In some areas, obviously that's not the case. The value increases have been fairly modest, but if you look at some of the sort of, say, the downtown commercial sector, you'll notice that the values have gone up considerably more than 20%. So we're noticing that some of our appraisals that we believe were at market value just 2 years ago are now at less than half of the sales price for those current properties. So just something for everybody to keep in mind, and that's the trend that we're seeing, and we'll be doing the next reappraisal in 2017, and we're going to make every effort in the assessor's office to reach out to the community and let them know what to expect the results of that to be prior to that program being completed, so people can get prepared and plan for it. In terms of this year's budget, the mayor's budget proposal is a proposal that we can not only live with, but I believe we'll be able to carry out our duties with the resources that are being proposed in that budget, and then we would appreciate your approval of that budget for the assessor's office. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
The floor is open. Budget committee members, anyone have any questions? Councilman Bedney.
Is Mr. Rivlin here today?
No, he's
Who
not.
Who speaks
ready.
on? Huh?
He's not. We have a representative from his offices here.
Yeah. Well, can I talk to the representative?
Certainly.
Right here.
Yeah. So I met with Mr. Rivlin and I asked him if there was a way that we could work and with the state. So when a nonprofit owns a piece of property and they are not yet building on it, but they're in the process of building, they're fundraising, if we could find a way to delay the taxation on that property. Because right now, if they own the property, it's a nonprofit that owns the property, but they are not building yet because they are fundraising, they don't get to, they get taxed. And that hurts their ability to raise money to be able to do the project. Do you know what is the status on that request?
I don't know the status, but I think that may be a more appropriate question for Mr. Rooker.
I'll be happy to answer that question. The state statutes require that a property be owned and used in order to receive an exemption from the state board. A property, a not-for-profit who wishes to seek an exemption must apply to the State Board of Equalization for that exemption, and the State Board of Equalization will either deny, grant, or partially grant that request. But they have to evaluate those requests based on the current state law, which does require that the property be owned and used. So the solution to that problem, beyond any potential constitutional issues that may be involved, would be simply to go to the legislature and have them change the law to allow for that type of exemption.
And this is what you told me when I discussed this with you before, and that's why I went with Mr. Rivling. And so I just wanted to get an update on that.
As far as I know, there have been no proposals at the state legislature to enact that type of a law, but they could take that up in any session, next session, if that were brought forward.
I have a Native American center in my district, and they are fundraising to build, and they're being taxed even though they are a nonprofit. So it's of a concern for me and for many nonprofits in the city. Mostly if we are trying to engage people in giving them property so they can build affordable housing, if the land is not being built yet, they'll be taxed. So it creates a wrinkle in the process. Thank you.
Councilman Davis, Anthony Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Rooker, for being here. First, I wanted to say your website looks amazing. The new website, I don't know if you mentioned that in this presentation, but the converse of a crack a couple of years ago. No, I did not do it. No, but a couple of years ago, I had some bad crack. No, it's awesome and super usable, and I just wanted to compliment you on that.
Thank you, and please teach Councilman Taggart how to use it.
I will show him. We'll do a tutorial. Usually I'm just showing him ESPN.com so he can get his scores, but no, thank you for that. And just one of my typical questions, with all this development we got going on, are we quickly kind of getting everybody, all the new homes, new apartments, things on the tax rolls, and just like as expedient and as quickly as possible?
Like any business that is seasonal and fluctuates, it's always difficult to figure out what the right level of staffing is. But we've been very busy, and I did neglect to and should thank our staff for the hard work they did this spring, because we have had more work this year than we've had in a long time with a smaller staff than we've ever had since I've been working there in the last 40 years. And we were able to get the work done, and we were able to get everything picked up and put on the rolls. And we reviewed every building permit out there, and we're just slightly ahead on our visual inspection program that we're doing for reappraisal. So things are going well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the hard work to you and your staff, and y'all do a great job, and we really appreciate you. Thanks.
Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think that kind of leads to the question that I wanted to ask you, Mr. Rooker. It's a little concerning to me that you're being budgeted almost $600,000 less than you were 2 years ago, when the economy is moving in the right direction for us today. And so with that, and I think you somewhat answered the question, that you're doing more work with less. If we continue the curve and the trend that we're in, are we going to be able to keep up with the increased workload that I think you'll see if property taxes continue to rise? Or, I mean, was there a reason that we saw a drastic, and I think a $600,000 drop in your budget over a 2-year period is a pretty drastic amount. Last time, if I start looking at percentages, that's a decent percentage of drop. Are you going to be able to maintain and be prepared for what's coming the next year?
I think that reduction in our budget, it mirrors what's taking place in most every department of metro government, and we've certainly been made every effort to live with that. It was a reality. The economy was not in great shape, as you pointed out, and so we had to tighten our belts. We've really made an investment in technology, and we've really made an investment in our staff in terms of training. We had, when I took office 7 years ago, we had probably 1 or 2 certified appraisers on staff. Now we have well over 20. Maybe 25 certified appraisers on staff. We've really invested in education training and technology. We're now doing our visual inspections in the office using computers and aerial photography. We have to pay for that aerial photography, but it's less expensive than paying a staff member to go out and drive down the street. So we've made taken some great steps to be more efficient and to use technology wisely and to train our staff. And so I think we're in a position where we are probably staffed at a sufficient level, but if business picks up much more, we may be coming back to you to ask for some additional investment in staff in the future. We're really at about our capacity to get out and get new construction picked up. And if we have an upturn from here, we're going to have to reevaluate where we are. We may also need to update some of our computer systems and some of our technology, and that may come to you in the near future in the form of some sort of a capital 4% request. 2 years ago was a reappraisal year, and yes, and that's another good point too. Sometimes our budget spikes during reappraisal, so we have had a reduction every year, but it may not be as dramatic as what it appears to be. That's a good point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Glover. Any other questions for Mr. Rooker? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Rooker. Gentlemen, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And